Hi guys, welcome to part 3 of the chapter 3 video lecture on intercultural communication. We left off, we were talking about different types of American co-cultures, and the software I'm using only allows 15 minutes per video. So we timed out and we didn't quite get to the last one or two of them. So we left off at orientation, and orientation is how a culture values patience in terms of immediate or long-term rewards. Oh, this is the last one. So short-term orientation is that the culture values here and now, quick results, and efficiency. In a long-term orientation culture, it's more future-focused. It's more about putting in the work now to get future rewards, being adaptable, and persevering through difficult times. By and large, America is a short-term orientation culture, but we do have some co-cultures that value long-term orientation. We do have a bit of weaving that desire for long-term orientation in there. I would say that short-term orientation is a real value for American culture versus long-term orientation is an ideal value. And we talked about those in the first part of this lecture, the difference between a culture's ideal values and their real values. What they say they want versus what they say they do versus what they actually do. So I think this is a good example of a difference between those two. So here is kind of all of the dimensions of culture put in graphs. So you can see here's power distance, individualism, feminine, masculine, uncertainty, avoidance, long-term orientation, or restraint and indulgence, and a very similar graph over here. And these help you to kind of see how these two compare with each other, and that each of these dimensions are a kind of a spectrum in and of itself. And here's another one on there. So individualistic cultures versus collectivist cultures describe how personal needs are prioritized versus the needs, goals of the group, clan, or organization. Masculine and feminine describes how masculine societies have different rules for men and women, less so in feminine cultures. Uncertainty avoidance is how comfortable people are with change in the way they work or live versus the known systems. Power distance is the degree that people are comfortable with influencing upwards, or accept the inequality in distribution on power in society. Remember, we talked about a monarchy versus a democracy there. Time perspective has to do with long-term perspective, and whether or not we schedule things out in blocks or whether we are willing to be a little more flexible. And indulgence versus restraint is orientation. It's instant gratification versus long-term planning and regulation through social norms. So what are some potential barriers to intercultural communication competence? Well, a big one is anxiety, particularly about unfamiliar cultures. We talked about that culture shock earlier. Culture shock creates anxiety, which can make you less likely to be adaptable in a new culture. Assumed similarity or difference. We talked about this in a previous chapter where we assume that the people are like us in ways that maybe that they aren't, or they have similar values and maybe that they don't, or we assume differences that may not exist. Ethnocentrism is the belief that your culture is superior to others. And obviously, if you think your culture is better than the culture that you're interacting with, then that's going to create problems. Stereotyping, assuming that all people of a certain culture behave or look a certain way, would also create a lot of problems. Incompatible communication codes refer to different languages or vocabulary, and that would definitely be a barrier. So if you were speaking with someone in Spain and you didn't know any Spanish, that would make it very difficult to communicate. That would definitely be a barrier. Or incompatible norms and values. So norms are behaviors, expectations. So if you're going from different cultures and you're completely different, you have completely different values, completely different expectations, that's going to make it very difficult to find common ground and to communicate. So how do we overcome these barriers? Well, one way is to learn more about different cultures. And some ways to do that are through books and classes or observing people or even immersing yourself in that culture. Attitude is also a really important part of this. It's a good idea to tolerate ambiguity and to be open-minded. and to do good things for the sake of doing good things, which is altruism. And these things can help you to be more tolerant of other cultures and to learn more about them in an open-minded way. And then behavior matters too. So you want to practice listening, actively listening to what other people have to say, and trying to put yourself in their shoes, empathy, and be flexible too. All of these things can help make it easier to deal with cultural differences here and abroad if you're lucky enough to travel abroad. So that brings us to the end of the Chapter 3 PowerPoints. And again, that was on intercultural communication. So I will have the next set of videos up for you guys shortly, and let me know if you have any questions, and have a great day.